Have you ever stood on solid ground and felt it shift beneath your feet, not in a violent, chaotic way like an earthquake, but in a gentle, rhythmic motion, almost as if the earth itself were breathing? This isn't a scene from a fantasy novel or a distant myth. It's a real, documented phenomenon that has left witnesses spanning centuries and continents utterly captivated. What if I told you that deep below the surface of our planet, there are hidden pulse systems, ancient, mysterious rhythms that have sparked both scientific curiosity and legendary tales? These subterranean vibrations challenge everything we think we know about the world beneath us, hinting at forces and histories far stranger and more wondrous than we often dare to imagine. This phenomenon, often called "when the ground breathed," has fascinated historians, geologists, and seekers of mystery for generations. It raises profound questions. Could these pulses be echoes of forgotten technologies, advanced systems left behind by civilizations lost to time? Or are they natural wonders, the result of geological processes so subtle and intricate that they border on the magical? From the sacred sites of ancient cultures to the silent, echoing chambers deep underground, these rhythms seem to connect us to something older and far more mysterious than everyday life suggests. They remind us that the Earth is not a static, silent place. It's alive with movement, story, and secrets waiting to be uncovered. In this video, we're setting out on a journey to explore these hidden pulse systems below the Earth's surface. We'll travel through time, from the spiritual beliefs of indigenous cultures to the cutting-edge tools of modern science, unraveling the threads of this enigma piece by piece. You'll hear about eerie accounts of singing sands, humming tunnels, and throbbing hills, places where the boundary between myth and reality blurs. By the end, you'll not only understand the compelling theories behind these events, but also see how they tie into some of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. So come with me, let's dig deeper, listen closely, and discover what it truly means when the ground begins to breathe. To truly grasp this idea, picture yourself walking across what seems like perfectly solid, stable ground when suddenly you feel a subtle, rolling motion under your feet, a slow, gentle heave that lasts for a few seconds before settling back into stillness. It's not a jolt or a shake. There's no rumbling or crashing. Instead, it's almost like the Earth is taking a deep, quiet breath right beneath you. That exact sensation is what countless people across time have described, and it forms the core of what researchers now refer to as hidden pulse systems. These aren't your everyday tremors or man-made vibrations from machinery or mining. They're rhythmic, repeating patterns of movement deep within the planet's crust, often so low in frequency that they're felt more as a pressure change or a deep resonance than heard as a sound, though sometimes they're accompanied by a low hum or a tonal pulse that can make the experience even more unsettling or mesmerizing. What makes these pulses so intriguing isn't just their unusual rhythm, it's how selectively they appear. These events aren't random. They often recur in the same specific locations, places already steeped in mystery or geological significance. Some of the most frequently reported sites include areas near ancient monuments, like standing stones and burial mounds, or zones with unusual underground features such as extensive cave networks, dormant volcanic tubes, and even intersections of what folk traditions call ley lines, those hypothetical alignments between historic and sacred sites. It's as though the Earth is whispering its secrets most loudly in places where human history and natural wonder deeply intertwine. Scientists like geophysicist Dr. Elena Vance have proposed several compelling theories to explain these rhythmic Earth movements. One of the leading ideas points to hydrogeological activity, massive volumes of water moving through underground aquifers and caves. As water shifts and flows, especially after heavy rains or during seasonal changes, it can create pressure differences that make the ground above flex ever so slightly, producing that slow, breathing effect. Another explanation involves subtle tectonic activity, not dramatic earthquakes but what experts call slow slip events, where tectonic plates release stress not in a single violent rupture but through a series of prolonged, barely perceptible tremors that can repeat for days or even weeks. There's also fascinating, though more speculative, research into whether large-scale human activities from the ancient past, like the construction of massive stone complexes, could have altered local geological stresses or resonant frequencies in a way that left a lasting, pulsating imprint on the land. What's essential to understand is that hidden pulse systems sit at a fascinating crossroads between science and mystery. On one hand, they invite rigorous measurement and analysis. Geologists use sensitive instruments like seismometers and ground-penetrating radar to track these vibrations, map their patterns, and test physical hypotheses. On the other hand, they challenge our basic perception of the Earth as a stable, inanimate stage for life. Instead, these rhythms suggest a planet that is dynamic, responsive, and in some ways almost alive, vibrating with a low, steady energy that we are only beginning to sense and comprehend. This blend of the empirical and the enigmatic is what makes the phenomenon so enduringly compelling. It invites us to question not just how the Earth moves, but why it moves in such strangely beautiful and intelligent ways. Long before modern instruments could measure the subtle vibrations of our planet, human beings were already intimately familiar with the sensation of the Earth moving in deep, rhythmic patterns. These experiences were so profound that they became woven directly into the spiritual and mythological foundations of countless ancient cultures. For the Greeks, this wasn't a random geological event. It was the breath of Gaia, the primordial earth goddess, a living entity whose sighs and stirrings manifested as tremors and fertile soil. They built oracles and temples on sites where these energies were felt most strongly, believing them to be portals for divine communication. Similarly, many indigenous tribes across the Americas identified specific ceremonial grounds where the Earth seemed to pulse in time with drumming and chanting during rituals. These locations were never chosen arbitrarily. They were places where the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds was considered thin, a direct result of the palpable energy emanating from below. Medieval European chronicles are filled with their own fascinating accounts that blur the line between folklore and early scientific observation. Travelers' tales often spoke of singing sands in vast desert dunes that emitted low, harmonic hums as winds passed over them, a phenomenon now understood as acoustic resonance. Elsewhere, villagers living near certain hillsides would report hearing deep, mournful groans emanating from the ground, especially after heavy rains. Without a scientific framework to explain these sounds, people attributed them to the restless shifting of buried giants, or interpreted them as omens and messages from angels or demons. What's truly remarkable is that these stories were rarely pure fantasy. They were often attempts to explain very real, albeit misunderstood, auditory and sensory experiences. The incredible part of these historical narratives is how frequently they align with what we now know to be tangible geological features, that sacred hill where the Cherokee people gathered for ceremony. It's often situated directly above a complex network of underground aquifers, where shifting water pressures could create subtle, rhythmic ground movements. The Greek temple dedicated to Gaia, frequently built near an active fault line, where the slow, grinding release of tectonic stress could produce a sensation akin to a deep, earthly breath. These correlations suggest that ancient peoples possessed a form of intuitive geological wisdom. They were exceptionally attuned to the landscape, able to sense and identify places of powerful subterranean activity, even if they explained it through the language of spirit and myth. This deep historical connection invites a fascinating question. Were our ancestors merely passive observers of these phenomena, or did they, in some way, learn to interact with them? The deliberate placement of megalithic structures like stone circles and burial mounds on these energetic sites hints at a possible intentionality. It implies that certain cultures might have recognized these pulses not just as curious anomalies, but as a tangible force, a heartbeat of the planet that could be harnessed, amplified, or revered. Their stories and traditions are not just superstitions to be dismissed. They are a rich cultural repository of data, a record of human interaction with the Earth's hidden rhythms that modern science is only just beginning to appreciate and investigate. So let's pull back the curtain on the science, because geology provides some of the most compelling and well-documented explanations for these enigmatic rhythms. Think of it like this: the planet isn't a solid, unmoving ball. It's a dynamic, ever-shifting system with its own internal clockwork, and much of that activity happens completely out of sight. One of the primary engines behind these hidden pulses is water. Vast networks of underground aquifers, essentially massive, water-soaked layers of rock and sediment, act like a planetary circulatory system. After a heavy rainfall or during seasonal snowmelt, these subterranean reservoirs fill up, increasing the pressure on the surrounding rock. Then, as that water slowly drains or shifts, the pressure releases, causing the ground above to flex and settle in a slow, rhythmic pattern. It's a process so gradual you'd never see it, but if you were standing directly above it, you might just feel that deep, drawn-out sigh of the Earth. This isn't just theoretical. In places like Florida, with its extensive limestone aquifer systems, these hydraulic pulses are well documented and even influence the stability of the ground itself. Another fascinating piece of the puzzle comes from the world of microseismicity. These aren't the dramatic, building-toppling earthquakes we typically fear, but rather a constant, subtle soundtrack of tiny fractures and microscopic shifts deep within the bedrock. Picture a sheet of ice on a pond slowly cracking and settling. It makes small, popping sounds as it adjusts to temperature changes. Now, imagine that same process happening over miles of rock deep underground. In certain types of rock, like the brittle limestone found in extensive cave systems or the fractured basalt of old volcanic fields, these tiny energy releases can resonate and become amplified. They can sync up, creating a cascade of minor tremors that, together, produce a gentle, rhythmic vibration that travels to the surface. Geologists often detect these harmonic tremors near volcanoes, where they signal the movement of magma, but they occur in all sorts of other geologically active zones as well, completely independent of any volcanic activity. Perhaps one of the most poetic natural explanations is the concept of earth tides. We're all familiar with how the moon's gravitational pull governs the ocean's tides, causing the sea to rise and fall in a dependable rhythm. But that same gravitational force from the moon and sun also acts on the solid ground beneath our feet. The entire crust of the Earth actually bulges and contracts not by a lot, just a matter of centimeters, but it's enough to create a measurable daily pulse. In regions with specific geological conditions, such as broad, flat sedimentary basins or areas near large bodies of water, this subtle expansion and contraction can be more pronounced. It's the planet breathing in time with the cosmos, a literal rising and falling of the land in a slow, celestial dance that has been going on for billions of years. Of course, detecting these incredibly subtle movements requires incredibly sophisticated technology. Modern geophysicists are no longer reliant on anecdotal reports. They have an arsenal of tools to listen to the planet's heartbeat. Networks of ultra-sensitive seismographs can pick up vibrations far below the threshold of human perception, charting their frequency and intensity. Even more impressive, satellite-based radar systems like InSAR can measure minute changes in the elevation of the ground over vast areas, literally watching the Earth's surface rise and fall by millimeters in near real time. This technology has been revolutionary, confirming the existence of slow-slip tectonic events and the rhythmic swelling of aquifers. Yet, for all our advanced instrumentation, a compelling mystery remains. While these natural mechanisms explain a great number of reported pulse events, they don't account for all of them. Why do these phenomena feel so intensely localized, occurring with such power in one specific field or atop one particular hill, while the surrounding area remains utterly still? Why do the pulses at some ancient sacred sites seem to carry a specific frequency that resonates so deeply with human consciousness? Science has given us the framework to understand the how, but the lingering question of why some pulses feel so intentional, so perfectly placed, is what keeps the mystery alive and draws us ever deeper into the intersection of measurable reality and perceived wonder. While geology offers powerful explanations for these earthly rhythms, the story doesn't end with nature alone. A fascinating layer of this mystery comes from the world of archaeology, where the deliberate placement of humanity's oldest and most awe-inspiring structures suggests our ancestors may have been active participants in this subterranean symphony, not just passive observers. Consider the sheer improbability that so many of these ancient sites, from the massive stones of Stonehenge on England's Salisbury Plain to the timeless pyramids rising from the Egyptian desert at Giza, were constructed directly atop significant geological features. It's a pattern too consistent to be mere coincidence. These monuments frequently align with underground fault lines, where the Earth's crust is under constant, subtle stress, or they sit above powerful aquifers and underground rivers, the very sources of those hydraulic pulses we discussed. This has led a growing number of researchers to ask a revolutionary question. What if these cultures weren't just building near these energies, but were intentionally building to harness them? This idea ventures into the realm of what's often termed Earth energies, a concept that walks the line between measurable science and esoteric tradition. One of the most enduring theories in this area involves ley lines, first proposed in the 1920s by an amateur archaeologist who noticed that many ancient sites fell into straight-line alignments across the British countryside. The ley line hypothesis suggests that our ancestors might have been mapping a network of subtle energy currents flowing across the planet. While mainstream archaeology remains deeply skeptical, often dismissing ley lines as the result of selective pattern recognition or wishful thinking, the theory persists for a compelling reason. It attempts to provide a why, a potential purpose behind the precise placement of sites that often required staggering amounts of labor to construct. The proposition is that at certain points where these hypothetical lines crossed, the natural energetic pulses of the Earth might have been amplified or focused, creating locations of heightened power that were chosen for ceremony, healing, or perhaps even communication. Intriguingly, modern experiments are beginning to lend some credence to the acoustic and vibrational aspect of these ideas. Take, for instance, the Great Gallery inside the 4,500-year-old passage tomb at Newgrange in Ireland. This long, stone-walled corridor is not only precisely aligned with the winter solstice sunrise, but also possesses remarkable acoustic properties. specific frequencies of sound, like chanting or drumming, resonate and build within the chamber, creating a palpable vibration that can be felt in the bones. Similarly, studies inside the pyramids and in the underground complexes beneath Egyptian temples have detected unusual electromagnetic anomalies and resonant frequencies that seem to interact with the natural background hum of the earth. When you stand in one of these places during a period of subtle tectonic activity or shifting water pressure below, the entire structure could act like a giant resonator, amplifying that faint subterranean pulse into a sensation that truly feels like the ground is breathing in time with the ancient stones. This practice of designing structures in harmony with the perceived energy of the landscape is known as geomancy, the art of placing and shaping buildings to align with spiritual and earthly forces. While often viewed as a mystical or pseudoscientific tradition today, it's important to recognize that for ancient cultures, there was likely no separation between the spiritual and the physical world. The energy they sought to harness might have been interpreted as the breath of a god or the spirit of an ancestor, but their methods, choosing specific rocks with resonant qualities, orienting doorways to capture celestial light and sound, building over aquifers, demonstrate a sophisticated, empirical understanding of their environment. They were brilliant observers of nature, and their architectural achievements suggest they learned to work with the Earth's hidden rhythms, not against them. This intersection of archaeology and unconventional science opens a door to a radically different view of history. It asks us to reconsider the technological and spiritual sophistication of past civilizations, proposing that their greatest legacy might not be the stones we see, but a lost science of energy and vibration that we are only just beginning to rediscover. Whether you view these ideas as compelling alternatives or fascinating speculation, they undeniably add a profound layer of depth to the mystery, suggesting that some hidden pulse systems might not be purely natural wonders, but the enduring echo of ancient, intentional design. Now, let's turn our attention to a real-world location where these theories converge in a truly astonishing way: the Hal-Saflieni Hypogeum on the Mediterranean island of Malta. This isn't just any archaeological site. It's a sprawling, multi-level underground temple complex carved from solid limestone over 5,000 years ago, a place so unique it's been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. For decades, visitors and researchers have reported a deeply strange and consistent experience within its deepest chambers, a pervasive, low-frequency hum that seems to emanate from the very walls and floor, accompanied by a tangible vibration that can be felt through the soles of the feet. It's a sensation that many describe as standing inside a giant, silent bell that is constantly, softly ringing. The phenomenon is so pronounced that it has earned the Hypogeum the nickname the humming tunnels. But this isn't just an eerie anecdote. It's a multi-layered mystery that intertwines ingenious human design with powerful natural forces. Archaeoacoustic studies led by researchers like a team from the University of Malta have made a fascinating discovery. The shape of the Hypogeum's chambers is not random. The curved walls, domed ceilings, and specific dimensions of rooms like the famous Oracle Chamber are expertly designed to amplify and resonate at a very specific low frequency, around 110 Hz. This is a frequency known to have a profound effect on human brain activity, often shifting consciousness into a more receptive, slightly altered state. It's not difficult to imagine the powerful effect this would have had during rituals, where chanting or drumming at this sacred frequency would have filled the entire space, making the very air vibrate and creating an overwhelming sensory experience for those inside. Yet the human-made design is only half the story. geological surveys have revealed that the Hypogeum sits directly above a complex network of natural fissures and underground water channels. Malta has no permanent rivers or lakes. All its freshwater comes from aquifers deep within its porous limestone bedrock. The movement of this water, especially with tidal influences from the nearby Mediterranean Sea, creates subtle but constant pressure changes and vibrations that travel upward through the rock. The Hypogeum, carved directly into that same rock, acts as a natural amplifier for these subterranean rhythms. It's as if the ancient builders intentionally constructed their temple around a natural loudspeaker for the Earth's own pulse, harnessing the planet's hidden vibrations to power their ceremonies. This perfect storm of architecture and geology is reflected perfectly in local legend. Maltese folklore speaks of the Hypogeum not as a silent tomb, but as a living, breathing entity that could sing or lament. The stories say that its sacred sounds could carry for miles, traveling through the ground to be heard across the island, and that priests used these vibrations to communicate with the gods and prophesize the future. For a long time, these tales were dismissed as poetic mythology, but when modern scientists placed sensitive recording equipment in the lowest levels, they captured something extraordinary, an unexplained, persistent resonance that seems to have no clear source, a hum that continues even when the site is completely closed to visitors, and all modern vibrational sources are accounted for. The Hypogeum stands as a powerful case study because it refuses to be easily categorized. It demonstrates that the line between a natural pulse system and a man-made one can be incredibly blurry. Was the constant hum a happy accident of geology that the temple's builders discovered and then enhanced with their brilliant acoustic architecture? Or does it represent a sophisticated, lost understanding of geomancy, a deliberate science of shaping stone to tune into and magnify the Earth's own energy for spiritual purposes? The evidence suggests the ancient Maltese didn't just stumble upon this phenomenon. They mastered it, creating a space where the breath of the Earth and the breath of humanity became one, leaving behind an acoustic artifact that continues to resonate with a mystery we are still trying to decode. Across the Irish Sea, another powerful example of this phenomenon pulses with both myth and measurable energy. The Hill of Tara, the ancient seat of the High Kings of Ireland, is more than just an archaeological site. It's a place where the very soil seems to hold a memory, a rhythm that many visitors swear they can feel, especially during the liminal times of year like the Festival of Samhain, when the veil between worlds is said to be at its thinnest. For centuries, folklore has painted Tara not merely as a hill, but as a sacred portal, a direct gateway to the other world, the realm of the ancient gods, spirits, and ancestors. The legends say that at certain times, the earth here doesn't just lie still, it breathes. It swells and settles in a deep, slow rhythm, a palpable vibration that is interpreted as the land itself responding to cosmic alignments or the movements of the unseen world. This wasn't considered a frightening event, but a sacred one, a sign that the connection between the physical and spiritual realms was open and active. Beneath these rich layers of myth, however, lies a compelling geological foundation that offers a scientific parallel to the poetry of the stories. The Hill of Tara is situated in Ireland's east on a bedrock of Carboniferous limestone. This type of rock is famously soluble, easily carved over millennia by slightly acidic rainwater into extensive cave systems, underground rivers, and complex networks of fissures. This creates a natural plumbing system on a massive scale. Imagine the immense volumes of water shifting and flowing through these dark channels after a heavy rain or with the slow pull of distant tides. These movements can create subtle but significant hydraulic pressures, causing the ground above to flex and release in a rhythmic pattern that could absolutely be perceived as a gentle throbbing or pulsing underfoot. The same natural process that forms the stunning stalactites in show caves also generates these faint, earthly heartbeats at the surface. What makes Tara so special and so enduringly mysterious is the powerful convergence of this geological reality with millennia of intense human reverence. This isn't a random hill with caves underneath. It's a hill that was deliberately chosen, developed, and sanctified by generation upon generation of people who clearly sensed its unique energy. The site is covered with ancient earthworks, burial mounds, and stone structures like the Leah Fail, the Stone of Destiny, which was said to cry out when touched by the rightful king. This long-term, concentrated human activity raises a fascinating question. Did people build here because they felt the pulse, or does the pulse feel stronger because of what was built here? The intention and emotion poured into a landscape over thousands of years might create a kind of feedback loop, amplifying the subjective experience of the place and making its subtle energies more perceptible to sensitive individuals. This intersection of the measurable and the mystical is where modern researchers, including dowsers and those studying earth energies, have focused their attention. Using tools like magnetometers and other types of sensing equipment, they have mapped what they describe as anomalous energy fields and ley line intersections converging directly on the hill's summit. Dowsers who practice the ancient art of detecting subtle energies often associated with water or geological faults frequently report powerful reactions at Tara, describing spirals of energy and specific points where the vibrational feeling is most intense. While these methods reside on the fringes of conventional science, the correlations they uncover are difficult to ignore. The points of highest dowsing response often align with the most significant archaeological features, suggesting that our ancestors, too, were somehow attuning themselves to these invisible currents. The true magic of Tara, and the reason it remains such a captivating case study, is its perfect illustration of how these hidden pulse systems exist in the liminal space between objective fact and subjective experience. A geologist can point to the limestone and water and give a perfectly rational explanation for the physical sensation. A historian can recount the myths and legends that give that sensation meaning. But for the person standing on the hill at dusk during Samhain, feeling a slow, rising swell beneath their feet, that experience transcends both explanations. It becomes something more, a personal encounter with a deep, ancient mystery that is both of this world and beyond it. Tara doesn't just ask us to choose between science and story. It invites us to hold both in our minds at once, to understand that a place can be a geological formation and a sacred portal, and that the ground can breathe with the rhythms of both water and wonder. To truly grasp the immense power of water in shaping these mysterious rhythms, we need to envision a world beneath our feet that is just as dynamic and fluid as the oceans above. Think of the vast, hidden networks of aquifers and subterranean rivers not as static pools of water, but as the planet's own pressurized circulatory system. These are not mere puddles in the dirt. They are colossal, flowing bodies of water held within porous rock like a giant, water-logged sponge that spans for miles. When this system is full, after a season of heavy rains or a rapid snowmelt, the sheer weight and pressure of all that water pushes upward against the layers of earth and rock above it. Then, as the water slowly drains away or shifts its course, that pressure releases, and the ground above settles back down. This constant, slow-motion flexing of the Earth's crust is what can manifest at the surface as that gentle, breathing sensation, a literal rising and falling of the land in a rhythm dictated by the water's hidden dance. We can see this process playing out with startling clarity in specific locations around the globe. Take Florida, for instance, a state built upon a foundation of porous limestone that acts as a massive aquifer. Here, the connection between water and earth is so direct that changes in the aquifer's water level due to drought, rain, or even agricultural pumping can lead to visible and measurable ground movement. In some areas, the land itself has been observed to sink or rise by several inches over time, a phenomenon known as subsidence and rebound. For residents, this can sometimes feel less like a dramatic collapse and more like a slow, rolling wave passing deep underground. Similarly, on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, the famous cenotes, those stunning natural sinkholes filled with crystal-clear water, are actually windows into a vast underground river system. The flow of water through these limestone caves is influenced by the tides of the nearby Caribbean Sea. As the ocean tides rise and fall, they literally push and pull on the water within these caves, creating rhythmic pressure changes that can make the surrounding ground subtly pulsate. To the ancient Maya, these sites were sacred portals to the underworld. Today, we can understand them as powerful examples of hydrology in action, where the pulse of the ocean is transmitted directly through the rock. Scientists have developed incredibly sophisticated computer models to simulate these hydrological cycles, treating the Earth's subsurface like a complex engine where fluid dynamics and rock mechanics interact. By inputting data on rainfall, tidal forces, and the specific composition of the local geology, they can often predict with remarkable accuracy when and where these ground movements might occur. This modeling is crucial for practical applications, from managing water resources to assessing the risk of sinkholes. It shows us that a great many historical accounts of breathing ground or mysterious hums likely have a perfectly rational explanation rooted in the movement of water. Yet, for all our advanced understanding, perplexing anomalies remain cases that defy even the most detailed models. There are well-documented instances of these rhythmic pulses occurring in areas with no significant aquifers or during periods of drought when water levels are stable. Other times, the frequency or intensity of the vibration is far greater than what hydrological forces alone should be able to generate. These outliers are the true heart of the mystery. They suggest that while water is a primary driver, it may not be the only one, or that it might be interacting with other forces, perhaps geological, perhaps something else entirely, in ways we don't yet comprehend. This is where the simple explanation deepens into something far more fascinating, reminding us that water, in its hidden journeys, might be conducting a far more complex symphony beneath the surface. But beyond the steady flow of water, the Earth possesses a far deeper, more powerful rhythm, one driven by the immense grinding forces of plate tectonics. This brings us to a fascinating and relatively recent discovery in the world of geophysics, the phenomenon of slow earthquakes. Unlike the violent, catastrophic shattering of rock that defines a traditional earthquake, a slow earthquake is exactly what it sounds like: a gradual, silent slippage along a fault line that can take days, weeks, or even months to fully unfold. Instead of releasing its pent-up energy in a single, terrifying jolt, it lets it out in a prolonged, low-frequency vibration, a deep hum that is often completely imperceptible to humans without the aid of sensitive instruments. These events, formerly known as episodic tremor and slip, are now known to be a common occurrence in major subduction zones around the world, like the Cascadia region off the Pacific Northwest coast of the United States and Canada, where the Juan de Fuca plate is slowly diving beneath the North American plate. The sensations produced by these slow slip events are utterly different from what we expect from an earthquake. There's no sudden lurch or rolling wave. If you were to feel it at all, it would be as a sustained, gentle pulsation, a barely there throbbing in the ground that might last for an unusually long time. It's not difficult to imagine how, in centuries past, a community experiencing such an event might have struggled to explain it. Without the context of modern seismology, this kind of prolonged, rhythmic trembling could easily be interpreted as something mythical. The stirring of a buried giant, the restless turning of a subterranean dragon, or the breath of the earth itself. These tectonic pulses provide a compelling scientific backbone for countless historical accounts of mysterious, non-destructive ground movements that seem to have a life of their own. Adding another layer to this tectonic symphony are harmonic tremors. These are often associated with volcanic activity, caused by the movement of magma and superheated fluids forcing their way through deep cracks and conduits in the crust. As this magma shifts, it can cause the surrounding rock to fracture and vibrate, generating a continuous, rhythmic signal that can be picked up by seismographs. While typically linked to volcanoes, similar tremors can also be generated by the movement of other deep crustal fluids far from any volcanic center, anywhere that pressure is building and releasing in a constrained space underground. These harmonic signals are the geological equivalent of a sustained note on a cello, a deep, resonant pulse that vibrates through the bedrock, traveling for miles until it might be faintly felt at the surface as a subtle, humming vibration. What makes these tectonic and volcanic contributions so intriguing is their subtlety. For most of human history, these events flew completely under the radar. They were the ghost signals of our planet, present but undetectable, leaving behind only a trail of confused witnesses and embellished folklore. It's only with the advent of ultra-sensitive global networks of GPS stations and seismometers that we've begun to hear this faint, deep music of the Earth. This technology allows us to literally watch the land compress and stretch by millimeters during a slow slip event, and to listen to the harmonic hum of fluids moving miles below our feet. This scientific perspective doesn't diminish the mystery, it reframes it in a truly awe-inspiring way. It bridges the gap between hard, empirical data and the eerie, almost animate sensations reported for centuries. The ground isn't breathing because it's alive in a biological sense, but it is absolutely alive in a geological one, a constantly shifting, moving, and pulsing system of immense power and complexity. These slow, deep rhythms are the planet's way of adjusting its immense stresses, a constant, quiet conversation happening in the rock beneath our feet that we are only now learning how to hear. This profound sense of a living, breathing world is echoed in countless other traditions. Across the diverse nations of native North America, the Earth is universally revered not as a resource to be used, but as a sacred, sentient relative, often referred to as Mother Earth. Her rhythms are not random anomalies to be feared, but vital signs to be listened to and honored. Ceremonies and prophecies are frequently tied to these perceived pulses. The timing of a ritual might be chosen based on a felt vibration in the ground, interpreted as a sign of the Earth's readiness or a message from the spirit world. The iconic drum used in countless indigenous ceremonies isn't just an instrument. Its steady, resonant beat is a conscious effort to synchronize human activity with the perceived heartbeat of the planet, a practice of aligning their own rhythm with the great pulse they believe flows through all creation. This isn't a primitive superstition, but a sophisticated philosophical framework for existing in a reciprocal relationship with a dynamic world. What's truly remarkable is how often these spiritual interpretations, across vastly different cultures, seem to align with observable geological reality. The Hindu concept of prana, or the universal life force that permeates all things, finds a direct parallel in discussions of Earth energies and vibrational fields. Specific points on the landscape where this energy is said to be particularly concentrated, known as prana shaktis, often correspond with locations where geological surveys might later identify underground water convergence, mineral deposits, or fault lines that could generate subtle telluric currents. Similarly, the Aboriginal concept of Tijukurpa or the dreaming describes energetic song lines that crisscross the Australian continent, mapping both a spiritual and physical geography. Stories passed down for millennia about certain hills that sing or rocks that hum have repeatedly been validated by modern geologists who find that those specific sites possess unique acoustic properties due to their shape, composition, or underlying geology. These ancient stories function as a form of long-term environmental data storage, preserving knowledge of unusual and powerful places through narrative. This global tapestry of belief offers us a crucial insight. Our ancestors were brilliant observers. They may have explained the phenomena through the language of spirit and deity, but their descriptions were frequently rooted in acute, empirical observation of the natural world. A grove of trees growing in an unusual pattern, the behavior of animals avoiding a specific area, or the way sound carried strangely across a particular valley. All of these subtle clues were pieced together to identify places of power, which were almost invariably places of distinct geological activity. Their myths and legends were their science, a way of encoding and transmitting vital information about the landscape and its hidden behaviors to future generations. The story of a dragon sleeping under a hill whose breath causes the ground to tremble is far more memorable and effective for ensuring people avoid building on an unstable, methane-seeping slope than a dry geological report would have been. This deep cultural history challenges the modern tendency to dismiss such beliefs as mere fantasy. Instead, it invites us to see them as different ways of knowing, as complementary lenses for understanding the same complex reality. The scientific method gives us the tools to measure the frequency, amplitude, and source of a subterranean pulse. It can tell us the how, but cultural and spiritual interpretations grapple with the why and the so what. They answer not just what is happening, but what it means for our place in the cosmos and our relationship to the planet. They provide a context that raw data alone cannot, weaving the physical phenomenon into a larger narrative of meaning, purpose, and reverence. In doing so, they remind us that the experience of feeling the ground breathe is a holistic one, engaging not just our senses but our emotions, our intellect, and our spirit, connecting us to a chain of human wonder that stretches back to the very dawn of consciousness. The game has completely changed in our ability to listen to the planet's subtle rhythms, all thanks to a suite of technologies so advanced they border on science fiction. We've moved far beyond relying on anecdotal reports or simple seismographs. Today's scientists have an entire arsenal of tools that allow them to see and hear the Earth's hidden pulse with a clarity that was unimaginable just a few decades ago. One of the most revolutionary of these is a mouthful to say, interferometric synthetic aperture radar, or InSAR for short. This isn't a gadget you plant in the ground. It's a technology deployed on satellites orbiting high above the Earth. These satellites continuously beam radar signals down to the planet's surface and then measure the precise time it takes for those signals to bounce back. By comparing these measurements over time, they can detect changes in the distance between the satellite and the ground with an accuracy down to the millimeter. It's like giving the entire planet a continuous, ultra-precise medical scan, allowing us to watch in near real time as vast areas of land subtly swell, contract, or shift in a slow, rhythmic dance. This is how we can now observe the gentle breathing of a full tectonic plate or the slow, pumping heartbeat of a massive aquifer system from space. Then there's the technology that turns the ground beneath our feet into a massive listening device. It's called Distributed Acoustic Sensing, or DAS. The concept is brilliantly simple. Repurpose existing fiber optic cables, the same kind that bring us high-speed internet, and use them as a kind of technological nervous system. Scientists send a pulse of laser light down the cable and then analyze the tiny bits of light that scatter back. Any vibration or strain on the cable, even from deep underground, changes the properties of that returning light. This means a single cable strung through a tunnel or buried along a pipeline can act as thousands of individual microphones or seismometers, creating an incredibly detailed picture of vibrations across dozens of miles. It's an unprecedented way to eavesdrop on the faintest whispers of the Earth, from the slow grind of tectonic faults to the gentle pulse of water moving through rock. These tools have fueled massive, collaborative projects that are fundamentally rewriting our understanding of the continent. The Earth Scope project in the United States was a perfect example, a sprawling 15-year effort that deployed thousands of seismic and GPS sensors across the country in a dense, mobile array. This network didn't just look for big earthquakes, it listened for the planet's background hum, and what it found was astounding. It mapped the continuous, creeping movement of the tectonic plates and identified the faint, rhythmic signals of episodic tremor and slip along the Cascadia subduction zone. It provided the hard data that confirmed these slow, silent earthquakes are a regular part of our planet's cycle, offering a scientific explanation for sensations that might have been felt for centuries but never understood. And yet, for all this jaw-dropping technology, the mystery hasn't been solved. It's simply been upgraded. These powerful tools are like switching from a blurry telescope to the James Webb Space Telescope. We can see infinitely more detail, but that detail often reveals new, more complex questions we never thought to ask. We can now measure a pulse with millimeter precision, but that doesn't always tell us why it's happening in one specific spot and not another, or why some rhythmic signals have a peculiar frequency that doesn't match any known geological model. This persistent enigma has broken down the traditional walls between academic disciplines, forging unlikely and fascinating collaborations. Geophysicists now regularly partner with archaeologists to study the resonant properties of ancient megalithic sites. Historians pore over old texts and oral histories with geologists to see if legends of trembling ground align with newly discovered fault lines. This collaborative spirit has even expanded to include all of us through the rise of citizen science. Researchers are now developing smartphone apps that can harness the sophisticated accelerometers already built into our phones, the same sensors that tell your screen to rotate, and use them to detect and report tiny ground vibrations. By pooling data from thousands of devices in a single region, scientists can create a rich, crowdsourced map of subtle seismic activity that would be impossible to gather any other way. It's a powerful reminder that the tools of discovery are becoming more democratic, allowing anyone with curiosity and a phone to contribute to unraveling this ancient mystery. So while our technology has demystified some of the Earth's rhythms, it has ultimately deepened the wonder, proving that the more precisely we can listen to our planet, the more complex and captivating its song becomes. But what if these pulses aren't just a natural geological occurrence? What if, instead of being a simple byproduct of water and rock, they are the faint, lingering echo of something far more profound, a forgotten technology from a lost chapter in human history? This is the captivating, though highly controversial, theory put forward by a number of researchers, that these hidden pulse systems are the decaying remnants of sophisticated ancient energy networks. The idea proposes that certain prehistoric civilizations possessed a deep, almost intuitive understanding of the Earth's natural energies and learned not just to sense them, but to harness, amplify, and direct them for specific purposes. Imagine an entire landscape engineered like a giant circuit board, with megalithic structures acting as capacitors, ley lines as conduction pathways, and the planet's own telluric currents as the power source. In this view, sites like the Great Pyramid of Giza or the massive stone circles of Europe were not merely tombs or calendars. They were powerful resonators designed to tune into the fundamental frequency of the Earth itself. Proponents of this theory point to some genuinely puzzling anomalies that conventional archaeology struggles to explain. For instance, there are numerous accounts and some measured instances of unusual electromagnetic phenomena at ancient sites. Visitors to the King's Chamber inside the Great Pyramid have reported their electronic equipment malfunctioning or their camera batteries draining inexplicably fast. Informal experiments have occasionally detected strange electromagnetic fluctuations or pockets of ionized air in the passages of ancient tombs. Perhaps most intriguing are the persistent reports of specific acoustic and vibrational effects. As we saw in Malta's Hypogeum, the very design of these places seems to manipulate sound and vibration in ways that modern acoustic engineers are only beginning to appreciate. If these structures can amplify a whisper to be heard throughout a chamber, could they also be designed to amplify the subtle vibrational pulse of an underground aquifer or a deep tectonic fault, turning a faint hum into a powerful, palpable thrum that could be used for ceremonial or even practical purposes? The concept of ley lines is central to this idea of an ancient energy grid. First proposed by amateur archaeologist Alfred Watkins in the 1920s, ley lines are straight alignments drawn between various historic structures and prominent landmarks. While mainstream scholarship largely dismisses them as the result of apophenia, the human tendency to find patterns in random data, the theory persists because it offers an elegant, if unproven, explanation for the seemingly nonsensical placement of so many remote ancient monuments. Why would a culture expend enormous effort to drag multi-ton stones to the top of a windswept hill, if not for that specific location possessing a unique quality? The energy grid theory suggests these sites were chosen because they were nodes where the Earth's natural energy was most concentrated or accessible, and that the alignments between them charted the flow of this energy across the landscape, much like a surveyor mapping electrical lines. It is crucial to acknowledge that these ideas reside firmly on the fringe of accepted science. The vast majority of archaeologists and geophysicists require testable hypotheses, reproducible evidence, and peer-reviewed data, standards that theories of ancient power grids have largely failed to meet. They are often categorized as pseudo-history or proto-scientific speculation, grouped with other popular but unverified ideas like ancient astronauts or crystal-powered civilizations. The lack of any discovered machinery, wiring, or clear infrastructure for such a grid is a significant hurdle. Critics argue that attributing these wonders to lost high technology can sometimes undermine the very real and impressive ingenuity of our ancestors, who achieved incredible feats with the materials and knowledge available to them. Yet, even if we set aside the more sensational claims, the enduring power of these theories speaks to a deeper, more universal human impulse. They represent our profound desire to find intention and intelligence in the mysteries of the past, to believe that the awe we feel when standing in these ancient places was once shared and understood by their builders. These speculative narratives challenge the conventional, linear progression of history that suggests technology has moved in a straight line from primitive to advanced. They open the door to the possibility of different kinds of advancement, perhaps not based on microchips and steel, but on a holistic science of vibration, resonance, and earth energies that has been almost entirely lost to time. Whether fact or fiction, these theories compel us to look at the ancient world not as a simpler time, but as a potentially different one, filled with knowledge we are still struggling to comprehend. They ensure that the mystery of the breathing ground is not just a geological puzzle, but a historical one, inviting us to imagine what humanity might have been capable of, and what secrets might still lie buried, pulsing quietly, waiting to be rediscovered. But the connection between life and these subterranean rhythms extends far beyond mere detection. It hints at a deep, symbiotic relationship where biology and geology are in constant, silent conversation. Consider the humble plant rooted firmly in the soil. Research in the field of plant bioacoustics has revealed that roots can actually sense and respond to vibrations in the earth, subtly altering their growth patterns toward sources of water or away from potential threats. The gentle, rhythmic pulses from a distant aquifer or a deep tectonic slip could act as a kind of background music for the botanical world, a low-frequency signal that influences everything from seed germination to the health of entire forests. This isn't some esoteric fantasy. It's a measurable biological response to a physical phenomenon, suggesting that the flora beneath our feet is intimately tuned into the planet's hidden vibrations. This attunement becomes even more pronounced in the animal kingdom, where numerous species have evolved a breathtaking sensitivity to the Earth's subtle premonitions. Elephants, for instance, are known to communicate using infrasound frequencies far below the range of human hearing that can travel for miles through the ground. It's believed they can also detect the infrasonic rumble of an impending earthquake or volcanic eruption long before our instruments can, often fleeing to higher ground hours in advance. Similarly, birds are known to exhibit erratic behavior before seismic events, and even common pets like dogs and cats can become agitated by vibrations that are completely imperceptible to their human companions. These creatures aren't psychic, they are simply equipped with a sensory palette that is far more attuned to the low-frequency orchestra of the planet. For them, the hidden pulse systems we are only beginning to measure are a clear and present part of their reality, a vital stream of information used for navigation, communication, and survival. And what of us? Humans may have largely insulated ourselves from the raw data of the natural world, but we haven't completely lost our connection to these deeper rhythms. There are countless anecdotal reports from people who have experienced a profound physiological or emotional response when standing at sites known for these subterranean pulses. Some describe a sudden, unexplained dizziness or a feeling of lightheadedness. Others speak of an overwhelming sense of awe, peace, or even a mystical connection to something greater than themselves. While these experiences are deeply subjective, a potential scientific explanation lies in the impact of low-frequency vibration on the human body. Our inner ear, the seat of our balance and spatial orientation, is exquisitely sensitive to vibration. A sustained, rhythmic pulse at the right frequency could easily disrupt the vestibular system, leading to feelings of vertigo or disorientation. Furthermore, there is ongoing research into how these same frequencies might influence brainwave patterns, potentially nudging consciousness toward more relaxed or receptive states, which could account for those powerful feelings of wonder and transcendence. This biological dimension fundamentally transforms our understanding of hidden pulse systems. They are no longer just a curious geological footnote or an archaeological puzzle. They become an active participant in a vast, interconnected ecological web, a web that includes every rooted plant, every burrowing animal, and every human being who has ever felt a strange thrill standing on a particular patch of ground. The pulse is not an isolated event. It is a thread in the fabric of the ecosystem, influencing behavior, guiding growth, and perhaps even shaping evolution over millennia. To fully appreciate this mystery, we must therefore blend the hard data of earth science with the living wisdom of biology, recognizing that the story of the breathing ground is not just about rocks and water, but about the countless forms of life that listen, feel, and respond to the planet's enduring, hidden heartbeat. Our minds are powerful storytellers, constantly weaving narratives from the raw data of our senses, and this innate tendency is at the very heart of why we might interpret a subtle vibration as the Earth taking a breath. This psychological process is known as apophenia, the human impulse to perceive meaningful patterns and connections within random or meaningless data. It's why we see faces in the clouds or hear hidden messages when a record is played backward. When we stand on ground that unexpectedly shifts or hums with a low-frequency rhythm, our brain scrambles for a familiar framework to explain the unfamiliar. The most readily available framework is often ourselves. We are breathing, living beings, so it feels almost natural to project that same quality of life onto the world around us. This anthropomorphism, this attribution of human-like agency and intention to non-human entities, is a universal human trait that has given us legends of river gods, mountain spirits, and a living, breathing planet. It's not a sign of primitive thinking, but rather a fundamental feature of how our cognition works, a shortcut that helps us navigate a complex and often unpredictable world. This instinct to find patterns is powerfully amplified by the context of the experience itself. Imagine standing in a modern, bustling city and feeling a faint tremor under your feet. Your immediate assumption might be construction work or a passing subway train. Now transport that exact same physical sensation to a place steeped in ancient mystery, like the Hill of Tara or the depths of a Neolithic tomb. Suddenly, the context changes everything. The weight of history, the stories of rituals and legends, the very atmosphere of reverence, it all primes your mind for a completely different interpretation. In such a place, a subtle pulse isn't just a vibration, it's a message, it's a sign. It feels profound because the significance of the location itself heightens our sensitivity and shapes our perception. Our emotional state acts as a filter, coloring the raw sensory input with layers of meaning, awe, and sometimes even a touch of fear. This is why two people can experience the same geological event and walk away with entirely different stories. One a dry, scientific account of hydraulic pressure, the other a life-changing spiritual encounter. Both are true in their own way. This doesn't mean the pulses are imaginary. The vibration is real, a physical phenomenon that can be measured by instruments. But the experience of that vibration, the story we tell ourselves about what it means, is a co-creation between the Earth's mechanics and our own psychology. Our cognitive biases, our emotional state, and our cultural background are all active ingredients in the recipe of mystery. This psychological insight doesn't diminish the wonder of these events. In fact, it adds a fascinating new layer of depth. It helps us understand that the mystery of the breathing ground is not located solely in the rock below or solely in the mind above, but in the beautiful, intricate space where the two meet. It bridges the gap between the objective reality measured by a seismograph and the subjective, powerful reality felt by a human being, reminding us that to fully appreciate this enigma, we must be willing to listen with both our instruments and our imaginations. While the mysteries of these hidden rhythms have captivated us for centuries, their significance is taking on a new and urgent dimension in our modern era. The stable geological and climatic conditions that humanity has relied upon for millennia are now shifting at an unprecedented rate, and these subterranean pulse systems are beginning to react in ways that transform them from a fascinating curiosity into a critical planetary vital sign. The very processes that generate these pulses, the flow of water through aquifers, the stability of permafrost, and the slow grind of tectonic plates are being fundamentally altered by the profound changes we're witnessing in our global climate. This means the ancient breathing Earth is now sending us new kinds of messages, and learning to interpret them could be key to navigating our future. Consider the vast expanses of permafrost in the Arctic, ground that has remained frozen solid for thousands of years. As global temperatures rise, this frozen foundation is beginning to thaw at an accelerating pace. This isn't just a simple melting process, it's a dramatic transformation of the landscape itself. As the ice within the soil turns to water, the ground loses its structural integrity, leading to subsidence, a sinking and collapsing of the land surface. This sudden release of pressure and the movement of newly liquefied water can generate a cascade of new and unpredictable pulse events. In regions of Siberia and northern Canada, scientists are already documenting strange new phenomena: hillsides that are suddenly slumping, land that is visibly undulating, and the emergence of mysterious craters caused by explosive releases of methane gas once trapped in the ice. These aren't subtle, ancient rhythms. They are the sharp, erratic gasps of a system under acute stress, serving as a stark and undeniable indicator of the rapid changes unfolding in some of the most sensitive environments on Earth. The influence of climate change extends far beyond the poles, directly impacting the massive hydrological cycles that drive so many pulse systems. Patterns of rainfall are becoming more extreme, swinging between prolonged, severe droughts and intense, catastrophic deluges. These wild fluctuations put incredible new pressures on underground aquifers. During a mega drought, we pump water out of the ground at an unsustainable rate, causing aquifers to shrink and the land above to compact and sink in a process known as subsidence. Then, when a massive rain event finally arrives, the sudden, torrential influx of water can violently recharge those same depleted spaces, causing the ground to swell and pulse with a force it hasn't experienced in modern times. This isn't a gentle, seasonal rhythm anymore. It's a jarring, erratic beat driven by climate volatility. In places like California's Central Valley or parts of India, satellite data is already capturing this new reality, showing land surfaces rising and falling in a much more dramatic and unpredictable dance than ever before. This new understanding positions the study of hidden pulse systems as far more than an academic pursuit. It becomes a practical, powerful tool for hazard prediction and environmental monitoring. By installing networks of sensitive listening devices in geologically active regions, scientists can essentially use the Earth's own pulses as a giant diagnostic tool. A gradual increase in the frequency or intensity of rhythmic tremors along a fault could provide an early warning of building tectonic stress, potentially supplementing our existing earthquake early warning systems. Similarly, monitoring the subtle swelling of ground above a key aquifer could give water managers vital, real-time data on groundwater levels, helping to manage this precious resource more effectively in an era of increasing scarcity. The mystery of the breathing ground is thus being leveraged into a sophisticated early warning system, turning ancient phenomena into a frontline defense against modern natural hazards. This approach underscores a profound and necessary shift in perspective. We can no longer afford to view these pulse systems as isolated historical artifacts or passive natural wonders. They must be recognized as integral components of our planet's living system, dynamic, responsive, and deeply interconnected with the atmospheric and oceanic changes driven by climate change. The rhythmic breath of the Earth is now syncopating with the fevered pulse of a warming world. By listening closely to these changes, we gain invaluable insights into the health and stability of the very ground beneath our feet. This effort demands a new kind of collaboration, one that respectfully integrates the deep, place-based knowledge of indigenous cultures who have long understood the Earth as a living entity with the precise analytical power of modern geoscience. In doing so, we honor the ancient wisdom that first recognized these rhythms while arming ourselves with the knowledge needed to face the environmental challenges of today and tomorrow. Long before the advent of written language or scientific journals, humanity's most vital knowledge was carried on the breath of storytellers, passed like a precious heirloom from one generation to the next. This rich tapestry of oral tradition has preserved some of the most enduring and insightful accounts of the Earth's hidden pulses, weaving them not as dry geological reports, but as living narratives filled with meaning, warning, and wonder. These stories form a global library of environmental wisdom, where the line between myth and measurement is beautifully and often intentionally blurred. They remind us that for most of human history, the shiver in the ground was not a data point to be analyzed, but a message to be interpreted, a story to be told around a fire under a blanket of stars. Consider the Scandinavian concept of Jordandan, which translates poetically to the breath of the earth. In the folklore of Norway and Sweden, this wasn't a random tremor, it was a potent omen. The ground's sudden sigh or deep rumble was believed to foretell significant events, sometimes a coming storm or a harsh winter, other times a birth, a death, or a momentous community change. This belief system demonstrates a sophisticated form of pattern recognition. Living in close communion with a dramatic and often unforgiving landscape, these communities learn to correlate specific subterranean sensations with seasonal shifts or atmospheric pressures, encoding that observed causality into a memorable and spiritually resonant story. The tale of the earth breathing was both an explanation and an early warning system, a way to make sense of a powerful and unpredictable natural world. On the other side of the globe, Australian Aboriginal cultures offer one of the most profound examples of this deep interconnection between story and landscape through the concept of the dreaming, or Tijukurpa. This is not a myth about a distant past, but a continuous, living reality that connects the ancestral beings to the land and its people. Central to this world, you are the songline's invisible pathways that crisscross the continent, tracing the journeys of these ancestral spirits as they formed the mountains, rivers, and deserts. Along these songlines, the very earth is said to vibrate with the residual energy of that creation. Specific sites are known to hum or pulse, and these sensations are not anomalies. They are affirmations of the enduring presence of the ancestral beings. The stories associated with these places are intricate navigational charts, moral guides, and geological records all at once, preserving knowledge of water sources, unique mineral deposits, and quite possibly the locations of subterranean seismic activity for tens of thousands of years. What is truly remarkable, and what lends these traditions immense credibility, is how often these metaphorical stories align with measurable physical reality. A folk tale about a hill that groans before the rains often corresponds to a location where limestone caves beneath the surface fill with water, their expanding pressure audibly straining the rock. A legend warning people not to build in a particular valley because the ground there is restless might perfectly describe the site of a slow-moving landslide or a prone-to-flooding alluvial plain. These narratives were a highly effective technology for survival, a way to package complex environmental observations into a memorable and transmissible format long before the development of modern cartography or geology. The story was the database and the elder was the server. This vast cultural repository offers an invaluable and often overlooked resource for modern researchers. Geophysicists and historians are increasingly turning to these oral traditions as a form of long-term baseline data. By mapping the locations and descriptions from these stories, scientists can sometimes identify previously unknown fault lines, aquifer systems, or areas prone to subsidence. This collaboration is a two-way street requiring immense respect and cultural sensitivity. It's not about science validating myth, but rather about different ways of knowing, the qualitative and the quantitative entering into a dialogue to achieve a more complete understanding of our dynamic planet. These stories are not primitive superstitions to be discarded by the light of modern knowledge. They are the distilled wisdom of countless generations of keen observers who lived intimately with the land, and they remind us that the mystery of the breathing ground is not just a subject for study, but a foundational part of humanity's shared heritage. To understand how the faintest whisper from deep within the earth can become a sensation powerful enough to feel, we need to explore one of the most fundamental principles in the entire universe: resonance. Think of a skilled opera singer who can shatter a crystal glass with nothing but her voice. She doesn't scream at random pitches. She finds the specific note that matches the glass's own natural vibrational frequency. When she hits that exact note, the energy from her voice transfers efficiently into the glass, causing its molecules to vibrate in sync with increasing intensity until the structure can no longer hold itself together. This is resonance in action, the dramatic amplification of a vibration when it matches the natural frequency of an object or system. Now, imagine applying that same principle not to a tiny glass, but to an entire mountain, a vast underground cavern, or even the planet itself. This isn't just a theoretical idea. It's a powerful physical law that provides a compelling key to unlocking the mystery of hidden pulse systems. The Earth is not a silent, solid mass. It is constantly vibrating with a symphony of frequencies generated by everything from ocean waves crashing on distant shores to the faint hum of tectonic activity deep below the crust. Many of these vibrations are far too subtle for us to perceive. However, if one of these faint frequencies happens to match the resonant frequency of a specific geological formation, like a particular type of rock layer, a network of underground caves, or even the shape of a valley, something remarkable happens. That specific feature acts like a giant natural amplifier, tuning into that one frequency and vibrating in sympathy with it, much like the glass with the singer's voice. This process can magnify a barely detectable tremor into a palpable, localized pulse that makes the ground itself seem to thrum with energy. It explains why such sensations are often reported in one very specific location, while the surrounding area remains completely still. You have to be standing directly on top of the natural amplifier to feel the effect. One of the most fascinating examples of planetary-scale resonance is the Schumann resonance. This is not a sound you can hear, but a fundamental electromagnetic frequency that exists in the cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. Created and sustained by global lightning activity, it pulses at a base frequency of around 7.83 times per second, with several harmonic frequencies above that. Think of it as the planet's own steady, rhythmic heartbeat, a constant, low-frequency drumbeat that surrounds us all. While its direct effect on geological pulses is still a subject of research, some scientists speculate that this planetary resonance could interact with large-scale underground features. For instance, a massive underground quartz deposit, which is naturally piezoelectric and can generate an electrical charge under pressure, might subtly sync up with these electromagnetic frequencies, potentially influencing the very slight expansion and contraction of the rock in a way that contributes to a rhythmic ground sensation. We can see the undeniable power of acoustic resonance in the deliberate design of ancient structures. The builders of places like Newgrange in Ireland or the Hypogeum in Malta demonstrated an incredible, perhaps intuitive, understanding of this principle. They shaped their chambers and passageways to resonate at specific low frequencies that are known to affect human consciousness, often around 110 or 111 times per second. When a ritual chant or drumbeat hit that sacred frequency within those stone spaces, the entire structure would begin to vibrate in sympathy, amplifying the sound into a physical sensation that could be felt in the chest and bones. This wasn't magic, it was sophisticated acoustic engineering. The stones themselves were singing, turning the entire temple into a resonator that could blur the line between sound, vibration, and spiritual experience, making the very concept of the breathing earth a tangible, orchestrated reality for those inside. This principle of resonance provides the crucial framework that bridges the gap between the objective world of physics and the subjective world of human mystery. It shows us that a sight feeling alive or powerful is not necessarily a matter of belief or superstition, but can be a direct physical experience of a natural amplification process. The Earth generates a constant, low-level soundtrack of vibrations. Resonance is the volume knob that turns that soundtrack up in specific locations, sometimes loud enough for us to feel. This doesn't explain away the wonder, it reveals the mechanics behind it, showing us that the strange pulses we feel are orchestrated by the same universal laws of vibration that govern a guitar string, a tuning fork, and the orbit of planets. It is a universal language of energy, and the Earth, in its hidden depths, is constantly speaking it. Yet for all our advanced tools and growing understanding, there remain a handful of documented phenomena that stubbornly resist every conventional explanation we throw at them. These are the true enigmas, the cases where the map of our knowledge still shows vast, blank spaces marked "Here be dragons." Perhaps the most famous of these is the Tao's hum, a persistent, low-frequency sound heard by a small percentage of the population in and around Taos, New Mexico. Since the early 1990s, those who can hear it describe it as a distant diesel engine idling, a maddening rumble that is most audible indoors at night and has been linked to everything from sleep deprivation to severe headaches for those sensitive to it. Despite numerous official investigations, including one commissioned by the United States Congress, the source has never been definitively identified. Theories have pointed to industrial equipment, power lines, military communications, and even unusual atmospheric conditions, but none have fully explained why only some people hear it or why it is so intensely localized. The Tao's hum stands as a perfect example of a sensory pulse, a vibration in the audible spectrum that defies our attempts to categorize and contain it within known scientific boxes. A similar, though less famous, mystery pulses through the dense woodlands of Germany's Black Forest. Here, residents and visitors have for decades reported feeling distinct, rhythmic tremors underfoot, not the sharp jolt of an earthquake, but a regular, repeating shudder that seems to emanate from deep below. These tremors are often accompanied by a low, sub-audible rumble. Geological surveys have been conducted, searching for fault lines or volcanic activity in the region, but the area is considered relatively stable tectonically. Investigations into possible human causes, such as mining or deep drilling, have also come up empty. The pulses seem to occur randomly, without any pattern linked to time of day or season, and their source remains an open case. Like the Tao's hum, the Black Forest tremors are a physical reality experienced by multiple witnesses, yet they exist in a blind spot of our current scientific models, a whisper from the Earth that we simply cannot yet translate. The existence of such unexplained events naturally opens the door to more speculative and often controversial lines of inquiry. When all standard geological, hydrological, and anthropogenic causes are systematically ruled out, the human mind instinctively reaches for more extraordinary possibilities. Some researchers have proposed the existence of entirely unknown geological processes, perhaps the slow, crystalline shifting of massive rock formations deep in the mantle, or the resonant frequency of entire tectonic plates creating a standing wave that only becomes palpable at certain points on the globe. Others look further afield to the possibility of extraterrestrial influences. While often dismissed as fringe, these ideas are not always about alien spacecraft. Some serious scientific discussions have pondered whether subtle gravitational effects from celestial bodies beyond the moon, or even the impact of cosmic rays on the upper atmosphere, could trigger resonant frequencies in the Earth's crust in ways we do not yet comprehend. What's most important about these more speculative theories is not their likelihood, but their function. They serve as a crucial pressure valve for scientific curiosity, reminding us that the absence of an explanation is not an endpoint, but a catalyst. The frustrating, beautiful persistence of an unsolved mystery like the Tao's hum is what pushes researchers to design more sensitive microphones, to develop new algorithms for filtering out urban noise, and to think about acoustics and vibration in radically new ways. The unexplained tremors in Germany drive geologists to re-examine old data, to consider finer-grained models of subsurface rock mechanics, and to collaborate with physicists who study quantum-level vibrations. These anomalies are the grit in the oyster, the irritant around which the pearl of innovation forms. They force us to acknowledge the comfortable limits of our current knowledge and then dare us to step beyond them. This embrace of the unexplained is paradoxically the most scientific approach of all. Healthy skepticism requires us to dismiss that for which there is no evidence, but it also demands that we remain open to the possibility of evidence we have not yet found. By openly admitting that certain earthly pulses remain beyond our understanding, we keep the door wide open for the kind of paradigm-shifting discoveries that have revolutionized science before. The next great leap in our understanding of the planet may not come from studying what we already know, but from dedicating serious, rigorous attention to the phenomena we cannot yet explain. These enduring enigmas are not a sign of failure. They are a guarantee that the field remains vibrantly alive, pulsating with questions that ensure the conversation between humanity and the Earth is far from over. It might seem like a purely academic pursuit, a fascinating but ultimately impractical dive into geological curiosities and ancient myths. Yet the study of these hidden pulse systems is yielding remarkably tangible benefits, directly inspiring a new wave of innovation in modern engineering and urban design. This isn't about simply explaining the past, it's about using its lessons to build a safer, more sustainable future. One of the most critical applications lies in the field of structural engineering, particularly in designing infrastructure that can withstand not just the violent shock of an earthquake, but the more subtle, prolonged stress of constant vibrational energy. By understanding the specific frequencies and amplitudes of the Earth's natural pulses, whether from slow slip tectonic events or deep reservoir fluctuations, engineers can now design buildings, bridges, and pipelines with a new level of sophistication. They can create foundations and materials that dampen or even dissipate these rhythmic energies, much like shock absorbers in a car smooth out a bumpy road. This bio-inspired approach, learning from how the Earth itself handles stress, is leading to the development of resonant-resistant structures that are not only stronger but also more durable and cost-effective over their lifespan. This forward-thinking philosophy extends directly into the realm of public safety through the enhancement of early warning systems for geological hazards. Traditional earthquake alerts rely on detecting the fast-moving but harmless P waves that arrive seconds before the more destructive S waves. However, by deploying dense networks of fiber optic cables for distributed acoustic sensing, we can now listen to the Earth's premonitory whispers with unprecedented clarity. The same slow, rhythmic pulses and harmonic tremors that were once the stuff of legend are now valuable data points. A gradual increase in the intensity or a shift in the pattern of these pulses along a known fault line could provide a crucial early indicator of building tectonic stress, potentially offering warnings not just seconds, but days or even weeks in advance of a significant seismic event. This transforms these mysterious rhythms from a subject of folklore into a vital component of a modern, life-saving civic infrastructure. Perhaps one of the most poetic applications is emerging in the field of sustainable architecture, where designers are looking directly to ancient sites for inspiration. The brilliant acoustic engineering of Malta's Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, where sound is perfectly amplified and focused without any electronic assistance, is a masterclass in passive energy efficiency. Modern architects are now studying these principles to design buildings that harness natural ventilation and temperature regulation. Imagine a concert hall or a public library whose very shape and structure are designed to capture and amplify the gentle whisper of the wind for natural cooling, or to use the sun's path for heating, drastically reducing the need for energy-intensive climate control systems. This ancient wisdom teaches us how to work with the environment's natural energies, rather than constantly fighting against them with brute force technology, leading to buildings that are not only more efficient but also more harmonious with their surroundings. The practical implications reach even further into one of the most pressing issues of our time: water security. In arid and semi-arid regions across the globe, from the American Southwest to parts of Africa and Australia, managing precious groundwater resources is a constant challenge. The same hydraulic pulses that make the ground seem to breathe are a direct expression of the water dynamics within vast aquifer systems. By using satellite-based radar technology to meticulously measure the minute rising and falling of the land's surface, a direct result of aquifer recharge and depletion, water managers can now accurately monitor groundwater levels across enormous areas in near real time. This data is invaluable. It allows for the precise allocation of water resources, helps predict the risk of land subsidence and sinkholes, and provides critical information for policies aimed at achieving sustainable water use. The mysterious pulse of the Earth thus becomes a precise instrument, a giant natural gauge that helps us better steward one of our most vital resources. This convergence of ancient mystery and cutting-edge technology powerfully demonstrates that the lines between different fields of knowledge are often artificial. The curiosity that drives a geologist to study tectonic tremors, the reverence that leads an archaeologist to preserve a sacred site, and the pragmatism that guides an engineer designing a new building are all part of the same fundamental human endeavor: to understand the world we live in and to create a better way of life within it. By listening to the Earth's hidden rhythms, we are not just uncovering secrets from the past, we are accessing a deep well of practical intelligence, one that offers innovative solutions for the complex challenges of the 21st century, proving that the most forward-thinking ideas are sometimes found by listening to the oldest whispers of the planet. This journey into the Earth's mysteries brings with it a profound responsibility, one that extends far beyond data collection and scientific publication. As we seek to unravel the secrets of these hidden pulse systems, we must navigate a delicate and essential ethical landscape, particularly when our curiosity leads us to places that are not merely points on a map, but the sacred heart of living cultures. The very sites where these rhythmic energies are most potent, the ancient temples, the ceremonial mounds, the ancestral lands, are often places of deep spiritual significance, woven into the identity and tradition of local and indigenous communities for countless generations. To treat these locations as simple laboratories or open-air museums, as puzzles to be solved without regard for their cultural meaning, is to commit a form of intellectual and spiritual colonization. It risks extracting knowledge while leaving behind a void of disrespect, reducing a living, breathing heritage to a sterile set of measurements. The true challenge and the greatest opportunity lies in shifting our approach from one of extraction to one of collaboration, recognizing that the most valuable understanding often comes not from imposing our own frameworks, but from listening with humility to those who have been listening to the land the longest. This collaborative model begins with the fundamental principle of prior and informed consent. It means that before any sensing equipment is deployed or any soil sample is taken, researchers have an obligation to engage in genuine dialogue with the communities who hold these places dear. This isn't a box-ticking exercise or a procedural hurdle. It is the foundation of ethical practice. It involves approaching community elders and knowledge keepers not as subjects to be studied, but as partners and co-investigators. It requires explaining the goals and methods of the research in accessible, transparent terms, and most importantly, respecting a community's right to say no. There are forms of knowledge that are not meant to be uncovered, stories that are not meant to be told outside of their cultural context, and energies that are not meant to be measured by external instruments. Honoring a decision to decline research is not a failure of science. It is a success of ethics, a recognition that some mysteries are meant to be preserved, not dissected. When collaboration moves forward, it can unlock a mutually enriching exchange that transforms the research itself. Scientists arrive with their advanced tools, magnetometers, ground-penetrating radar, satellite data. Local communities and indigenous experts bring a different, yet equally sophisticated toolkit. Generations of finely honed observational knowledge passed down through oral histories, songs, and stories. A geologist might see a specific rock formation and understand its mineral composition. A tribal elder might look at that same formation and share a story that encodes knowledge of its unique acoustic properties or its tendency to shift during certain lunar phases. One perspective is not superior to the other. They are complementary lenses focusing on the same truth. By weaving these ways of knowing together, a far more complete and nuanced picture emerges. The scientific data gains cultural context and meaning, while the traditional knowledge finds a new language and platform that can help ensure its preservation and wider appreciation. This is how we move beyond a paradigm where Western science simply validates indigenous wisdom and into a space of co-creation where both systems of knowledge are respected as valid and valuable in their own right. The history of archaeology and anthropology is unfortunately littered with examples of what happens when this balance is ignored. When sacred objects were looted from tombs, when ancestral remains were displayed in museums without permission, when spiritual ceremonies were observed as mere cultural curiosities. This legacy of exploitation has rightfully bred deep skepticism and hurt within many communities. Ethical research today must actively work to repair that trust. This can involve concrete actions like ensuring that all collected data and any artifacts are co-managed, with the community retaining ownership and control over how the information is used and shared. It means including community members as named authors on research papers and ensuring the benefits of the research, whether educational or financial, are shared equitably. It's about giving back as much as you take, ensuring that the process of investigation leaves the community stronger and more empowered, not more vulnerable. Ultimately, this ethical framework reframes the entire pursuit of mystery. It asks us to see these hidden pulse systems not as problems to be solved for the glory of discovery, but as sacred relationships to be understood with reverence. The goal shifts from unveiling a secret to deepening a connection to the planet, to its history, and to the diverse human cultures that have learned to live in dialogue with its rhythms. By approaching these places with a blend of open-minded curiosity and deep respect, we do more than just protect cultural heritage. We enrich the scientific process itself, infusing it with a humility and wisdom that can only make our understanding of the world more holistic, more meaningful, and truly complete. So where do we go from here? The fascinating truth is that the investigation into the Earth's hidden pulse systems is accelerating at a breathtaking pace, fueled by a new generation of technology that sounds like it's been pulled straight from science fiction. We're on the cusp of a seismic shift in our ability to listen to the planet, not with bigger microphones, but with smarter, infinitely more sensitive ones. Imagine quantum sensors, devices that leverage the bizarre and counterintuitive laws of quantum mechanics to detect changes in gravity or magnetic fields with a precision that dwarfs anything we have today. These instruments won't just hear the Earth's pulse, they'll be able to map the intricate flow of the subterranean currents creating it, potentially allowing us to visualize entire underground river systems or hidden magma chambers in vivid detail, simply by reading the faint distortions they create in the fabric of spacetime itself. This isn't distant future dreaming. Prototypes of these gravity gradiometers are already being developed, promising to peel back another layer of the rock and reveal the moving parts of the planetary engine we've never been able to see before. This torrent of new data will be utterly incomprehensible without the power of artificial intelligence to make sense of it all. AI and machine learning algorithms are poised to become the ultimate research partners, capable of sifting through petabytes of seismic data, satellite imagery, and historical climate records to find patterns and correlations that would take a human researcher 1,000 lifetimes to uncover. An AI could cross-reference a subtle, newly detected pulse in the Scottish Highlands with rainfall data from 50 years ago and the architectural plans of a nearby Neolithic stone circle, identifying a connection no one would have ever thought to look for. These systems will be able to run millions of simulations in the time it takes us to drink a cup of coffee, testing out countless what-if scenarios about the causes of these rhythms, from the movement of deep crustal fluids to the resonant frequencies of specific rock types. They won't replace human curiosity, but they will massively amplify it, turning vague hunches into testable hypotheses and transforming the field from one of observation into one of true prediction. This revolution will demand a complete breakdown of the traditional walls between academic disciplines. The lone geologist studying a seismogram in a lab is giving way to integrated teams where a software engineer, a geophysicist, an archaeologist, and a historian of religion sit around the same table, each bringing a piece of the puzzle. An anthropologist's record of a local folk tale about a singing mountain can provide the crucial clue that guides a physicist to point her sensors in the right direction. The precise celestial alignments of an ancient temple, meticulously documented by archaeologists, might help a geologist understand why a specific pulse event only occurs at a certain time of the year. These interdisciplinary collaborations are where the most profound breakthroughs will happen, in the fertile space where hard data meets cultural narrative. It's in these partnerships that we might finally be able to answer the big, lingering questions. Were the builders of these ancient sites truly intentional in their harnessing of Earth energies? And if so, how exactly did they achieve it? The answer likely won't come from a single field, but from the synthesis of them all. Perhaps most excitingly, this is no longer a mystery reserved for PhDs in ivory towers. The future of this research is radically democratic, opening its doors to anyone with a smartphone and a sense of wonder. Citizen science initiatives are already springing up, with apps that allow hikers, homeowners, and amateur naturalists to contribute valuable data. Your phone, sitting on your nightstand, contains a sophisticated accelerometer that can detect tiny vibrations. By pooling that anonymized data from thousands of devices in a single region, scientists can create an incredibly detailed, real-time map of microtremors and subtle ground movements, turning the entire public into a vast, distributed sensor network. This crowdsourced approach not only generates an unprecedented amount of data, but also reconnects people to the mystery in their own backyards, fostering a global community of observers all listening to the same planetary heartbeat. The person who feels a strange hum in their home in Ontario can now contribute that experience to a global database, helping to solve a puzzle that might also involve a throbbing hill in Ireland and a humming tunnel in Malta. This forward-looking perspective makes one thing abundantly clear: the mystery is far from solved. In fact, it's entering its most thrilling chapter. The questions we've been asking for centuries are about to be met with tools powerful enough to provide answers we can actually understand. The next decade promises to be a period of staggering discovery, where the line between legend and science may finally blur for good. We are moving from wondering if the ground breathes to understanding precisely how, why, and what it's trying to tell us. This isn't the end of the journey. It's the moment we all get to come along for the ride, participating in a collaborative, global effort to listen to one of our planet's oldest and most enduring secrets. The Earth has been whispering to us for millennia. We are finally building the ears to hear it, of course. The allure of a good mystery is undeniable, but to truly honor the wonder of these hidden pulse systems, we must also be willing to wield the bright light of critical thinking. Embracing the unknown doesn't mean we have to accept every extraordinary claim at face value. In fact, applying a healthy dose of scientific skepticism is what actually protects the integrity of these genuine enigmas, ensuring they aren't drowned out by a sea of sensationalism and misinformation. Think of it this way: by carefully clearing away the weeds of fantasy, we can better appreciate the true, resilient flowers of mystery that remain. This process of discernment isn't about being a spoilsport or dismissing wonder. It's about sharpening our focus so we can concentrate our curiosity on the phenomena that truly defy explanation. Let's take a very common example: the concept of energy vortexes. You've likely heard of places like Sedona, Arizona, famous for its stunning red rock formations and its reputation as a global hotspot for these so-called vortexes, specific spots where spiritual energy is said to be exceptionally concentrated, often leading to feelings of healing, enlightenment, or a connection to the cosmos. Now, the experiences people report in these places are often very real and deeply profound. However, the leap to labeling them as supernatural vortexes often overlooks a much more down-to-earth, yet still fascinating explanation. Geophysicists who have studied these areas frequently find that they correspond with significant geological activity, such as substantial underground water flows or unique magnetic field variations due to the high iron content in the rock. The gentle, uplifting feeling someone might attribute to spiritual energy could very well be a subtle, physiological response to these environmental factors: a change in air ionization, a very low-frequency infrasound from moving water, or even the sheer awe inspired by the breathtaking landscape itself. Recognizing this doesn't diminish the beauty of the experience. It simply roots it in the incredible, real-world complexity of our planet. This same principle applies to many historical accounts. It's absolutely true that our ancestors were keen observers of their environment, but it's also true that stories can become embellished over centuries of retelling. A rare event, like a particularly strong series of hydraulic pulses after a massive storm, could easily transform in local folklore over generations into the tale of a buried giant awakening once every 100 years. The core of the story, the earth moving, is based on a real event, but the mythological explanation around it has been amplified. Our job isn't to dismiss the story, but to appreciate it as a cultural artifact while simultaneously seeking the physical trigger that inspired it. This allows us to value the narrative as a piece of human history while continuing to investigate the geological truth behind it. This rigorous approach is what maintains credibility and fosters a much healthier, more productive dialogue between passionate enthusiasts and rigorous experts. When a researcher can acknowledge the measurable magnetic anomaly at a site while also explaining its likely natural cause, it builds trust. It shows that science isn't there to shut down conversation, but to deepen it with evidence. This creates a space where open-minded enthusiasts can bring their fascinating personal experiences to the table, and experts can contribute their data and analysis, each side informing and enriching the other. The goal is not to have a winner and a loser in a debate, but to collaboratively map the boundary between what we understand and what we don't. This balanced, evidence-based approach ensures that our collective fascination with the Earth's hidden rhythms remains grounded in reality, making the genuine mysteries that remain all the more compelling and worthy of our serious attention. While the sensation of the Earth breathing might feel like a rare and local wonder, the truth is this phenomenon knows no borders. From the vast, wind-swept dunes of Asia to the towering volcanic peaks of South America and the ancient limestone caverns of Europe, hidden pulse systems are a truly planetary experience, each one shaped by the unique geology and culture of its home. Consider the legendary singing sands of the Gobi Desert. Here, under the right conditions of dryness and wind, entire sand dunes emit a deep, low-frequency hum that can be heard for miles, a phenomenon caused by the synchronized sliding of billions of sand grains creating a resonant frequency. For the nomadic peoples of Mongolia, this sound is not a geological accident. It is the voice of the desert itself, a spiritual presence woven into their songs and stories, a sound believed to be the chanting of a sacred mountain. This acoustic marvel demonstrates how a purely physical process, the friction of sand, can transform a landscape into a living instrument, its pulse felt through the air as much as through the ground. Travel across the world to the Andes Mountains of South America, and you encounter a different kind of pulse altogether. Here, indigenous communities have long spoken of the trembling mountains, not in fear of catastrophic earthquakes, but in reference to a more subtle, often rhythmic shaking felt along the high valleys. Geologists studying these regions have identified a likely cause: volcanic activity. The Andes are part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, home to numerous active volcanoes. The movement of magma and superheated fluids through deep underground conduits can generate persistent harmonic tremors, sustained, low-level vibrations that are the mountain's constant, grumbling conversation with the forces that built it. For the local people, these tremors are an integral part of the sacred landscape, a sign of the powerful earth deities known as apus, and a reminder of the living, volatile nature of the world they inhabit. The same geological force that inspires or also demands respect, illustrating how pulse systems are often intertwined with both cultural reverence and very real natural hazards. Then there are the resonant caves of Southeast Asia, particularly in countries like Vietnam and Malaysia, where extensive karst limestone formations have been carved by water into breathtaking cave systems. In places like Vietnam's Sun Dune Cave, the largest in the world, visitors and researchers report not just echoes, but a palpable, full-body vibration, a deep hum that seems to emanate from the walls. This is a product of perfect acoustic resonance on a colossal scale. The cave's specific size and shape act as a natural amplifier for a range of low-frequency sounds, from distant ocean waves and subterranean rivers to the pressure of wind moving through its vast network of tunnels. What makes these sites even more fascinating is their cultural layer. Many of these caves hold profound spiritual significance, serving as ancient burial grounds, temples, or places of meditation for millennia. The persistent, resonant pulse within them is thus experienced not as a random noise, but as the enduring spirit of the place, a vibrational signature that has attracted human wonder for generations. When we place these diverse examples side by side, the singing sands of Asia, the trembling volcanoes of the Andes, and the resonant caves of Southeast Asia, startling patterns begin to emerge that transcend their local context. First, there is a clear and recurring geological pattern. These pulse systems are overwhelmingly associated with specific, dynamic landforms. Whether it's the sliding sands of deserts, the magma chambers of volcanoes, or the water-carved networks of limestone caves, these are environments in a constant state of flux, where energy, whether from wind, water, or heat, is being actively transferred and transformed. This suggests that the Earth's pulses are not anomalies, but rather the natural soundtrack of our planet's most active and energetic systems. Furthermore, a profound cultural pattern emerges. In every single case, the local human population has developed a rich tapestry of stories, beliefs, and practices around these phenomena. They are rarely, if ever, ignored or dismissed as mere curiosities. Instead, they are anthropomorphized, deified, and woven into the very identity of the people who live with them. This universal human response points to something fundamental: our innate desire to find meaning and connection in the powerful, unexplainable forces of nature. These stories are not just fanciful myths, they are a form of long-term environmental observation and a mechanism for cultural adaptation, ensuring that these powerful places are treated with the respect and caution they often demand. This global perspective is crucial because it shifts our understanding from isolated oddities to an interconnected planetary phenomenon. It proves that the hidden pulse is not a quirk of one specific location, but a universal language of the Earth, spoken in different dialects from continent to continent. Recognizing this shared experience is the first step toward a new kind of international scientific collaboration. Imagine researchers studying the resonant frequencies of Mongolian singing sands, comparing their data with seismologists monitoring harmonic tremors in the Andes, all while archaeologists contribute insights from the ceremonial use of resonant caves in Asia. By sharing knowledge across these geographical and disciplinary boundaries, we move closer to uncovering the universal physical principles that govern these mysteries. The Earth has been sharing its rhythms with all of humanity for millennia. Now, we are finally learning how to listen to each other and piece the global puzzle together. Perhaps one of the most striking accounts comes from a group of hikers traversing a remote stretch of the Scottish Highlands, a landscape already steeped in legend and myth. They described a moment of complete stillness, broken not by sound but by sensation, a slow, rising swell beneath their boots, as if the very earth were taking a deep, languid breath before settling back into repose. It wasn't a tremor of fear, but one of profound awe, a silent conversation with the land that left them not startled, but deeply humbled. This experience, echoed by others in similar wild places, suggests that these pulses are often most perceptible away from the constant vibrational noise of modern life, in the ancient, quiet places where the planet's subtle voice can still be heard. In stark contrast to these solitary wilderness encounters are the consistent reports from residents living in specific, settled areas known for their unique geology. In certain towns nestled along active fault lines in California or in regions with vast underground aquifers, the phenomenon isn't a rare marvel but a nightly companion. For some, it manifests not as a fearsome omen, but as a strangely soothing rhythm, a gentle, almost subaudible hum or a faint vibration that courses through the foundations of their homes, a lullaby written by the planet itself. One long-time resident described it as the feeling of the house purring like a giant cat, a constant, reassuring presence that, rather than causing alarm, actually helps them sleep. This normalization of the extraordinary reveals a fascinating human capacity to adapt and even find comfort in the mysterious rhythms of our world. These personal stories, while deeply subjective, are far from worthless to the scientific pursuit. In fact, they serve as crucial waypoints on the map of this mystery, when dozens of individuals, unknown to each other, independently report similar sensations in the same geographic location, a specific valley, a particular hillside, a certain stretch of coastline. It moves beyond coincidence and becomes a valuable data cluster. Researchers can then take these anecdotal pinpoints on the map and overlay them with geological surveys, satellite data, and hydrological charts, often finding compelling correlations. The hill that dozens of people describe as active or breathing frequently sits directly above a confluence of underground water channels or a previously unmapped minor fault line. In this way, the felt experience of individuals becomes a powerful, crowdsourced tool for scientific discovery, guiding experts to where they should point their sensitive instruments. Beyond the physical coordinates, these narratives provide an invaluable record of the emotional and psychological impact of these events. The language people use is often deeply revealing, leaning heavily on metaphor and simile. They speak of the earth feeling alive, of a heartbeat or a deep sigh. This isn't just poetic flourish, it's a window into how we process the incomprehensible. Faced with a sensation that defies everyday explanation, the human mind reaches for the familiar framework of a living, breathing being. This emotional response is a critical part of the data, reminding scientists that they are not just measuring vibrations in rock, but interpreting experiences that resonate deeply with the human spirit, blurring the line between sensory perception and profound feeling. Ultimately, these first-hand accounts accomplish something that raw data alone never could. They bridge the immense gap between the abstract concept of a subterranean pulse and its tangible, lived reality. A seismograph reading might show a precise frequency and amplitude on a chart, but it cannot convey the chill that runs down your spine when you feel that frequency for yourself, standing alone on a wind-swept moor. It cannot capture the strange comfort of a nightly vibration that has rocked generations of a family to sleep. By listening to these stories, we are reminded that the mystery of the breathing ground is not a remote intellectual puzzle to be solved in a laboratory. It is a sensory, immediate, and deeply human experience, one that connects us viscerally to the dynamic, pulsing planet we call home. As we've journeyed through the enigmatic world of hidden pulse systems, from ancient myths to modern science, one thing is clear: the Earth is far more dynamic and mysterious than we often assume. These rhythmic breaths beneath our feet challenge us to rethink our relationship with the planet, blending wonder with inquiry. Whether natural, man-made, or something yet undiscovered, they remind us that history and geology are intertwined in profound ways. I encourage you to stay curious, perhaps even step outside and feel the ground with new awareness. If you've ever experienced something like this, share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. Thank you for watching, and keep